6.4. Properties of rhombuses, rectangles, and squares. Number 1. Decide whether the parallelogram is a rhombus, a rectangle, or a square. Well, looking at the picture, we see this degree measure is 105. For it to be a rectangle or a square, this angle has to be 90. So we're going to say it is a rhombus because it has just 4 congruent sides, no right angles. And that is number 1. Number 2. Find the measure of the numbered angles in each rhombus. Now, in a rhombus, angles 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all congruent. Diagonals bisect the angles, and angles across from each other are equal. So to find angles 1, 2, 3, and 4, we see we have 116 here. 2, 4, and 116 all add up to 180. So subtract 180 from 116 and divide by 2 to find out what angles 2 and 4 are. Doing that gives me 32. And since all 4 of these angles are the same, they're all going to be 32. And that's number 2. Number 3. Find the measures of the numbered angles in the rhombus. So in our rhombus, number 2 we know automatically because diagonals are perpendicular. So number 2 would be 90 degrees. And then number 3, angles across from each other are equal in the rhombus. So 60 degrees would be number 3. Also, diagonals bisect angles, so if this is 60, so is that one. Now to find 1, which would also give us 4, we need to add up 60 and 90 and subtract it from 180 because all 3 of these add up to 180. So doing that gives me 30, which also gives me 4. So let's type in our answer. So the measure of angle 1 is 30, the measure of angle 2 is 90, and the measure of angle 3 is 60. And the measure of angle 4 we said is the same as 1, so 30. And that's number 3. Number 4, L, M, N, and P is a rectangle. Find the value of x and the length of each diagonal. So let's take a closer look at it. The measures of the diagonals in the rectangle are congruent, so we set them equal to each other and solve for x. So we subtract 2 from both sides and add 5 to both sides, and we get 42 equals 6x. Divide both sides by 6, and we get x equals 7. To find the measure of the diagonal, substitute 7 back in for x. Either one of these, it doesn't matter which one since they're both equal. And 2 times 7 plus 37 gives you 51. So let's type that in. So x is 7, and Ln is 51, and NP is 51. And that's number 4. Number 6, determine the most precise name for each quadrilateral. So for this one, the first thing I notice is that sides are different lengths. The ones across from each other are equal, but all 4 are not the same. So that means it's not going to be a rhombus or a square. It could be a rectangle, but we don't know anything about the angles, so we can't say it's a rectangle. That means at most we can say is that it's a parallelogram. And that's number 6. Number 7, list the quadrilaterals that have the given property. Choose among parallelogram, rhombus, rectangle, and square. So opposite angles are congruent. Well, that's not just a parallelogram. That's true for rectangles, rhombuses, and squares. So we're going to say C. And that's number 7. Going to number 9. Find the values of the variables. Then find the side lengths of the square. So let's take a closer look at that. Since this is a square, all the side lengths are equal to each other. So I'm going to set these two equal to each other to find y. So subtract y from both sides and add 8 to both sides. I'll get y equals 5. Now to find x, I got to find the length of this whole side because all the sides are the same and I can set that equal to it. So substituting 5 in for y I get a side length of 2. Now to find x, I'm going to take 4x minus 6 and set that equal to 2 because the side length equals 2. So now I add 6 to both sides. I get 8 and then divide both sides by 4, so I get x is 2. So y is 5 and x is 2. So let's type that in. So x is 2 and y is 5. And we said the length of the sides of the square is 2. That's number 9. Number 10. Find the values of the variables for the parallelogram. And we're given the measure of angle 1 is 5y minus 20. So let's take a closer look at it. Since this is a parallelogram, that means opposite sides are equal. So in this case, that means all 4 sides are going to be equal. And since this is 90 degrees, all 4 angles are going to be 90 degrees. So that makes this a square. Now, diagonals in a square are perpendicular, so the measure of angle 1 is going to be 90 degrees. We're told the measure of angle 1 equals 5y minus 20. So to find y, set that equal to 90 and solve for y. So we add 20 to both sides and get 5y equals 110 and divide both sides by 5 and you get y is 22. Now to find x and z, we need to know what this angle here and this angle here is. Well, the diagonals in a square bisect the angles. So if this is 90, that means each of these pieces are going to be 45, and that makes each of these 45 because angles across from each other are congruent. We know each of these 3 angles add up to 180, so to find x, set up the equation 9x plus 90 plus 45 equals 180. Combine like terms, you get 9x plus 135 equals 180. Subtract 135 from both sides, you get 9x equals 45. Divide both sides by 9, and x equals 5. Now to find z, you do the same thing. If this is 90, this is 90. So you do 18z plus 90 plus 45 equals 180. So combine the like terms, you get the 135. Subtract 135 from both sides, you get 18z equals 45. Divide both sides by 18, and z equals 2.5. And you are allowed to have decimals. So let's type that in. So x is 5, y is 22, and z is 2.5. And that's number 10. Number 12. Find the value of x in the rhombus. Remember, in the rhombus, opposite angles are congruent to each other. So set these equal to each other, and then subtract 4x squared from 5x squared. You get x squared. Add 6x to the other side, minus 16 equals 0. So set everything equal to 0. Now we have a quadratic equation. To solve for x, we got to factor it. So we need to determine 2 numbers that multiply to negative 16 but add up to 6. That would be 8 and negative 2. So write x plus 8 and x minus 2 in parentheses set equal to 0. Equal to 0. Subtract 8 from both sides here and get x is negative 8. Add 2 here and you get x is 2. Now we can't have a negative x in this case. So get rid of that and keep the x equals 2. So let's type that in. So x equals 2. And that's number 12.